I'm going to turn it over to Bryce, who is going to MC for us for the evening. So, Bryce Anderson, everyone.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Sorry, I was a little absent there, but we were working on our next project. So, our next project, potentially in the works, just making this up, is going to be financial planning horror stories. So, right in time for Halloween. But that's not what we're going to talk about tonight. So tonight, we are going to take the opposite side of the script, and we are going to talk about retire with joy. So the purpose of tonight is how to retire with joy. Because this could be the best time of your life if we do it right. And since we only get one life, we can't afford to do it any other way. So tonight, we want to bring together all the strategies that we've talked about, that we've collected through our collective wisdom of being advisors over the years, what we can share from the audience, our friends. So we're going to talk about proven strategies that work, pitfalls to avoid, and sharing that collective wisdom. So I want to make this as interactive as possible. So if you have comments, questions, stories, jokes, please feel free to throw them out there. We're going to bring the panelists up. And when we do, we want to make this interactive, right? We don't want to talk at you. We want to be a part of the conversation. So what does it mean to retire with joy? What is really the purpose of this? There's two parts to retire with joy. The first is retire. And that is the actual mechanical process of how do we do it financially. There's a financial component to retirement. The beautiful thing about retirement is it's not about doing nothing. It's about doing whatever you want. But you have to be able to write a check for yourself. How do we create that check? And how do we keep it coming in bigger and better amounts for you over time so you never have to go back to work? Right? So that's the retire part. And then the joy. Well, what is joy? Joy is a liberation from stress, from anxiety. It's about what makes you happy, what brings you peace. So being able to marry those two concepts, your life and joy, and your money and how we successfully manage it to provide for your life, is the retire with joy. So essentially, I can think of it as a car. I'll use this quick analogy. So think of your life as like the front wheels of your car. Okay? They steer, they control, they go down the road, they operate, they lead everything. Your back wheels are what gives the car stability and support. Those are your resources. That's your money. They have to be aligned. What happens to your car when your wheels aren't aligned? It wobbles. It gets cranky, it doesn't turn, it gets noisy. At worst, your wheels shoot off, right? That's neither peaceful nor joyful. Yeah. Right? You don't want to spend the best part of your life in retirement going down the road with a wobbly, shaky, uncertain car. Let's get those wheels aligned. Let's align your money and your life so you can retire with joy. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. Okay? The other thing I would like to talk about before we start this is Impact was born out of the need to revolutionize financial and investment management planning. And we want to lead the way. Richelle sat down and thought very long and hard about how to create a firm that we as advisors would want to be clients of. That's what Impact has become. What would we create for ourselves? What would we create for our friends and family? How would we make it about people over profits? How would we make it about prosperity over products? And how would we make it about a true partnership with our clients instead of sales promotions? Impact was born out of that idea. So I hope tonight at the end we can show you how we've done that, what makes us different, and to lead off the charge, we'd like to bring up some panelists, some people who can help us talk about how to maximize our time, our health, and our wealth. We'll start with Richelle. So many of you know Richelle. She's a 17-year veteran of the financial services industry. So we should give her a round of applause for her service. So it's flinching, it's the PTSD. So Richelle is not only regarded as from everyone I've talked to who's worked with her as not only one of the best and brightest minds in finance at being able to come up with unique and innovative solutions personalized for you, but also as a genuinely caring and honest person who wants what's best for you. She treats you like family because she thinks of you like family. Next, we'll introduce Mona Wade, the Mona Wade. A very unique perspective in retirement planning, and it's the idea of transitions. So Mona actually was a therapist who became a therapist to a therapist and started a therapy office. But she really got her start dealing with handicapped children. And these are medically at-risk children. So if any of you are from Sioux Falls, you remember Crippled Children's became Children's Care, is now Lifescape. She started there. And these medically at-risk children, they would pass away at much higher rates than normal children. And she realized something: there was no plan to transition or to talk about the passing for the staff. So she went out on her own and created a therapy practice to talk about passing and transitions for staff members, and then that just blossomed and sprung from there. So she is kind of our identity transitioner, talking about new worlds and new people and new ways forward. Bruce Blumer. Genius for creating connection and community, whether it's in Haiti or here in the church, but he comes to us from a long line of educational and service projects. He actually is a published author, so author of 3 books, working on 4.
It's in the works.
In the works. All right. Oh, he's got a children's book. So, just my speed. But Bruce is great at creating community and involvement and service. He's done a lot of work in Haiti, and I think they can speak to that later. And then finally, Steve Nelson, who comes to us to talk about health. And Steve is an all-around great guy and a wonderful human being.
Okay.
And he volunteers with the Union Gospel Mission once a week to help them with their Medicaid government benefits. So out of kindness in his heart, he serves others. One of the things that's unique about this panel that permeates every seat in it is their heart for service and the people that, if you like Richelle, you're going to like the people she invites into her life because she won't have anything else. So with that, I think we'll kick it off and we'll start with Richelle. We'll ask you a question. Okay. So the book Retire with Joy, what inspired you to write?
Yeah. So for those of you who, it's very, very loud. For those of you who don't know, I did just finish a book. You're all going to get a copy tonight, Retire with Joy. And I think what inspired me is kind of twofold. So as Bryce mentioned, I've worked with people who are transitioning into retirement for 17, almost 20 years actually now. And I have heard so many times, like, we create this really great financial plan to make you feel solid financially in retirement, and then so often people struggle not so much with the finances, but with other aspects of retirement. Like, there's so many pieces, so many mental pieces to retirement. And in 2022, I had kind of a big life change, and I took a year off, a year out of the industry, and I learned really quickly it's hard not to go to work. I learned that firsthand. Our identities sometimes, some of you are shaking your head, no, it's not. For some of us, our identities get so wrapped up in what we do, and who we are becomes really more about what we can produce and what we can do in our jobs. And that is a tough transition in retirement. And so I learned just some tips and tricks on my own, little things like in the book. I start off with talking about a healthy habits checklist. One of the first things I realized is that I was forgetting to take my vitamins because I just didn't get up in the morning and drink my green tea and take my vitamins and do all the things that I had normally done when I was working. And so I realized I have to have some checklists and build in some intentional ways to keep my mental health and my physical health going. And so the book includes some of those things in there too. But it was really just from that struggle and like, man, this is what my vet clients have been talking about, that I decided to write Retire with Joy. And I wanted to, of course, just help all of my clients as they work on these transitions. And I asked these guys to be here to help because I'm not the expert in all things, all things retirement. But through the years, Mona has been a good friend of mine for many years, for 15 or more years probably. And Mona has sewn into my life from a mental health perspective. Like Bryce said, Mona is a mental health professional, and she's just given me a lot of good tips. A mental health professional is a great friend to have. Everyone should find a mental health professional and friend them. And so Mona has given me a lot of great tips and wisdom and insight. And so I thought she would be a great person to have on the panel with us tonight. And Bruce Blumer has also been a friend of mine for a long time, probably about the same time, 15 or more years. And I actually knew Bruce's parents-in-law before that. So I've known Bruce and his family for a long time. And Bruce is another one of these people that really has enriched my life, in part because he's so passionate about purpose, about doing good somewhere. And that's the quote that he has been kind of pointing to here lately. He does a lot of work in Haiti. Bruce and I worked on getting a second clinic in Haiti. And as you, I think, probably all know, Impact Wealth Management has committed to giving a portion of our profits back to our local and global communities. And last year, we helped build a home in Haiti with Bruce's organization, Haiti Alive. And so Bruce, how many times did you try to retire?
A handful.
A handful of times. Bruce has retired and then gone back into the workforce and then retired again. So he's got some great insight, on some of these things that we're going to talk about tonight. And then Steve Nelson, I have just met recently. It was so cool because I met Steve literally because his heart was to find for his clients someone who's just looking to do the right thing for clients. And I don't remember if I know how you found us, but he came and had a conversation, and I just loved what he said because we were talking about all of the challenges that retirees face with, choosing their Medicare benefits and those kinds of things. And he just kind of offhandedly let me know that he volunteers 1 day a week to help people the homeless and the underprivileged get themselves health benefits. Because there's government programs for those things, but a lot of times people aren't aware of them. They don't have the resources to reach out. And so he volunteers to do that. So I was like, man, Steve, you just join the club here. We're just make a positive impact on the world. And our tagline at Impact is Every Day Impact One. And that's just kind of like our internal, the beat of our heart, that every day we want to make a positive impact on people's lives. And so that's why I chose the panelists that are up here today, and that is what kind of pushed me to write the book. Back to your original question. Have to cut me off.
No, you're on a roll, keep going.
Oh, that's it.
So before we start, does anybody have any particular questions for the panelists? We'll see if we want to talk about health, wealth, or time. All right, then I'll go. Mona, would you share with us your story? And so, well, actually, let me ask the audience a question. Has anybody here recently retired? Oh, congratulations.
3 years ago.
3 years ago, okay, that's pretty recent. Did anyone struggle with the idea of what they used to do and who they are now, and that transition from what retirement, when working to retirement? Was that a struggle at all? Were there issues and challenges?
I have no problem retiring, but you're right, when you're working, you think your personality is what you do for a living. And when you retire, you realize that's not who you are. There's a big gulf between what you do and what good you are. You learn that at retirement.
No, absolutely. So, then thank you for sharing. Mona, could you share your story with us?
Sure. First of all, I'd like to say congratulations, because if you are retired or you're planning to retire shortly, then you've done a good job of managing other life transitions, haven't you?
That's a really great insight.
And so my job as a counselor has been, to a large degree, helping people through life's transitions. And you know, we tend to think that developmental stages go from birth until 18, and once you're an adult, then you've arrived. But that's not true. We continue to move through life transitions all along. And each new piece of the journey is in fact new. And as I was thinking about speaking tonight, the image of a little baby came to mind. You know how those first few weeks, we cradle that baby in that fetal position. But a good parent knows they have to put that baby down on the floor for tummy time. And babies hate it. You know, if you can just get this image that that child bobs its head, then puts it down on the floor, it cries, it struggles, because it's new. And those muscles are not fully developed. But a good parent knows that that's an unnecessary piece of the transition. Pretty soon that little creature discovers they can pull their knees up, that little butt rocks back and forth, and then they find they can crawl. Their world has just become bigger. And then it doesn't take long, and they discover they know how to pull themselves up on the couch. And can't you see that picture of that child standing with that wide gait and arms outstretched, as though they're saying, I made it. So, friends, you're back to tummy time. If you're approaching retirement, you haven't done it before. And it's a transition. It really is. I retired, I think about 6 years ago. It was kind of a gradual thing. And we had kind of a family crisis. And so that became my focus. I didn't really have to think about what am I doing in retirement? I just focused on that. And then we got through that, and then I realized this business called Wellspring Therapy Center that I had birthed so many years ago, that it was time to pass that on. And so we made an arrangement with our daughter to sell it to her. And so previously she worked for us, and now my husband and I work for her. Talk about another transition. And you can know it's the right thing. And I fully knew it was the right thing, because she could take that counseling business into its next stage of development. And I didn't have that skill set nor the desire. But I remember one day just sitting at the counter and crying. And I said to my husband, I said, nobody can love this baby like I have, you know. But it was the best thing. And here we are now with more freedom to come and go. I really appreciate what you said about you think you are what you do. And so when you let that go, the question is, who am I now? And I would say you are more than what you do. You are the gifts and the gifts that you are in the world. And so if you have a passion for helping others, that's going to be there always. If you're someone who loves new ideas, that's going to be there. If you're the one who knows how to listen, that's still there. I call those the gifts of the Spirit. You're born with those, you don't have to work hard. They're just there. So now you get the opportunity to share those in the world in new ways. So that's pretty exciting, really. You are more than what you've done. I don't know how much time I have left.
You're on a roll. I think collectively we're captivated. Can we say that? We're good? Yep.
So I do want to mention some stumbling blocks that I've seen when I was counseling, and those are unnecessary or unrealistic fears. What if the stock market crashes? What if my spouse dies? What if my house burns down? You know, and if you're not sure you have enough money to live comfortably and do what you love, talk to the experts. Don't let your fears guide you into your retirement. And try not to get caught up on chasing the what ifs, because that's going to suck the joy right out of you. You can chase those forever, and there'll always be another what if. Also, I want to talk just a little bit about old messages that we may have received from our parents growing up, because those are embedded pretty deeply. Old messages like, if you're not beating yourself into the ground, you're lazy. Lazy, oh, we were taught, don't ever be lazy. So retirement from the outside can look like lazy. So you need to really challenge some of those messages that you've lived with, because you'll get to decide. You're an adult, and if you need help with that, get help with that. Also, there may be the message, the internal message, I don't deserve. I don't deserve to rest. I don't deserve to sit, drink my coffee, and watch the sunrise because I should be chasing something. And then aren't we also a culture who worships busyness? You know, it's like the busier we are, the more valuable we must be. That is not true. I have a friend, she's single. She can never find time to call me back. And when she does, the first thing she says is, oh, sorry, I've been crazy busy. And I'm thinking, you are crazy. You know? So being crazy busy, don't hold that up as a symbol of your wealth. Furthermore, don't measure yourself up against someone else. So there are people that move into retirement just as easy as breathing. And that may not be the case for you, and that's okay. There's only one you. I can't be Bruce. He can't be me. We just have to be who we are. And if that journey towards retirement, that tummy time is hard for you, it's okay. You will figure it out. You've figured everything else out to this point. So, just real quick, some things I recommend. Try to establish a routine. Good food, regular sleep pattern, get your body moving. Do not spend your life on the couch, please. Some kind of a spiritual practice. Social interaction, and limited viewing of the news. I have a friend who says she doesn't recognize her mother anymore because since she's retired, she spends her whole day watching news channels, and it is like a cancer inside of her. Don't let that happen to you. Trust you are enough. Live the questions. Don't force the answers. Thank you.
Yes, I was just gonna ask Bruce about spending your free time. It was mentioned that you're a community engagement guy, volunteering. How do you pick and how do you know which opportunity is right and how do you narrow it down to like, this is the one I'm gonna focus on? Because I have so many choices out there. I'm like, well, I could do this, I could do that, I could do this, but there's probably one that's right here. How do you narrow that down into one?
And you answered your question, the one that's right here. I mean, that, we all get too many opportunities, but what gets you up in the morning? What, like, that drives me. I'm interested, I want to help, poverty, I want to help feed families, I want to whatever. When that like, hey, that clicks, that's the one. And I would say do less well. That was an old phrase back in the education days, do less well. Don't spread yourself like the Platte River, a mile wide and an inch deep. Do less and do it well. Get connected, support the things that you're passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful question. Thank you for bringing that up. So Bruce, you want to keep the ball rolling?
I will.
One is a hard act to follow. I don't envy you.
So a number of years ago, there was a video out there, and it was a plane that was flying, but it was only half built. And so there's this guy out in the wings, and he was riveting metal onto the wings, and he was saying, it's 60 below zero, it's refreshing, it's brisk. And there was a stewardess who was serving orange juice, and the orange juice was flying horizontal into the person's face because the plane was half built. And the idea of that is sometimes you have to build the plane while it's flying. And I guess that's kind of my image for retirement, and that's what I've been doing is you kind of build the plane while it's flying. It's good to prepare, it's good to have plans and ideas of what you want, but realize you're going to be building that plane while you're flying. I'm not an expert. I've unretired and retired a few times. I've been sort of basically retired for 2 years now. And so I don't come as an expert, but I do think I have a couple of things that Mona and I did not talk before this event, but just a couple observations that I have about retirement. First of all, you kind of mentioned before, especially I think for men, a lot of our value and our connection comes through our work. Our connections come there, our worth, our value comes through our work. And so when the emails stop and nobody wants your questions anymore, and you start feeling irrelevant, it happens about overnight. And so just realize that's coming. It doesn't mean that it's perfect, doesn't mean that it's easy, but just realize it's coming. Especially for men, I think we have a lot of our value comes through our work, and you just have to realize that that's something that happens. And you have to kind of fight that irrelevance thing because that work goes away and you're different overnight. The other thing, just kind of like Mona said, our society produces or promotes busyness. Why is that a value for us? I mean, people don't say, I'm so busy in retirement, because you shouldn't be. There's just as much value in reading, going for a walk, traveling, spending time with your family. That's a value you should value, not being so busy. So I'm giving all of us permission to say, you know what? I'm enjoying this quieter time in my life. That's a good response, like, I have to be busy all the time, because I think that is a value of ours. I did bring a few things into retirement that have helped me. We have a ministry in Haiti called Haiti Alive. And so I kind of brought that into retirement, so that gives me some purpose. I continue to promote that and try to do some work in Haiti. And I also brought writing into retirement. So I've written 3 books, a couple children's books. And so that's helpful for me because I can write. It gives me a focus. I did bring my books along, but I'm not going to compete with hers. But if you want to see the kind of books that I write, I did bring them along. But this is her book event, Down by Book event. And so I do volunteer at a couple places, things that I'm interested in. Hunger is one of the things I'm really interested in. That one gets me. Hungry people get me. So Kids Against Hunger, I do some work with Feeding South Dakota, and then our ministry also feeds people. So kind of get connected to those things, because you do need some purpose when that work goes away. I don't do a lot of things well, but I do coffee well. I'm an expert at doing coffee. And so I am very intentional because I need that social interaction.
So I'm pretty intentional about inviting friends and other people out for coffee because I need that. I need to interact with people. Sometimes they ask for advice, which is kind of nice. You're older now, you have a lot of perspective, you've seen a lot of the world, and so it's kind of nice sometimes when they have that perspective. The other thing I'd just say is there's good weeks and bad weeks. Last week I had a really downer week, and I don't really know why. It was just kind of a quieter week, and it was just kind of a bummer week, and I don't know why. So this is just saying is just be ready for that. That you're going to have some weeks that you're really engaged and lots of fun things are happening, and you have weeks that are kind of slow, and it's not as much fun. And just know that's kind of part of this whole retirement gig. I would say the final thing is there is not one right plan. We're not here to give you a road and say, you know, if you do this and whatever. I mean, I've retired and unretired a couple times because I wanted to, something happened, I wanted to go back and I felt called or I felt like I wanted to do that. I think that's okay. Our plans are going to look different. The other things that come into play is health issues. I mean, if you have health issues or your spouse does, that changes your retirement projection. If you lose a partner or you lose a spouse, that changes what you're going to do in retirement. Good friends of ours, he wanted to work till he was 68 years old. He was just bound and determined to get to 68. 2 months after 68, he had a stroke, and he died. Well, that changed their retirement plan. And they had planned all this travel, and he put retirement off to 68 to die. And so that happens too often in our world. And so the other thing I would just say is there are times that financial, and I think Steve will talk about that, there are times that, and Richelle, that there are financial concerns that come into play. That changes the dynamics of your retirement. So those are all things that I would say, you're building a plane while it's flying. And some of you are going to be on the wing, and somebody will be serving orange juice, and somebody will be piloting it. It's going to look different for every one of us, but in those ways, we all need to find joy and purpose in our retirement.
Does anyone have any questions for Bruce? Comments? So I love that idea. In fact, they actually recently did a study on the epidemic of loneliness, and they found out that it's actually worse for you than smoking a pack a day of cigarettes. That's the impact of your health. So I guess you can either start smoking or join a group.
I'm Steve Nelson. I'm going to interrupt Bruce and say, please don't buy a pack of cigarettes. This is coming from the health insurance guy. I'll just kind of tell a little bit about myself and how I got into this. We moved to Sioux Falls mid-2010s with my wife. I took a job working for Avera in the marketing department, working with the doctors and the health plans and things. Kind of decided I wanted to set out on my own, and 2020 came around. I started a health insurance brokerage. Wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do with that, but about that time I was working with my dad, who's down south of Omaha. He was telling me he was trying to retire, and I said, well, that's great, you know, your finances are in order, and why aren't you retired yet? He goes, well, it's the health insurance thing. We're trying to figure out how we can make this work, right? And that kind of got the wheels turning for me. It was, you've worked your whole life to set yourself up to be able to retire, but now we've got this time clock out there set by somebody in Washington that says you can't retire until you hit the age of 65 because health insurance is going to bankrupt you, right? So that's kind of how I got into the Medicare space. It was helping my dad and my parents navigate their situations. I could make a career out of this. I've got a knack for this kind of thing. But what kind of brings me here today is kind of the team aspect of we all play our part in helping people to retire. So I'm not an expert in a lot of things. Bruce said he's not an expert in many things either, but I know healthcare, I know Medicare. Richelle knows finance. Mona knows the mental state of being retired and how to take care of your spiritual well-being that way. But I'm just going to kind of talk about a few general things that everybody should be considering with their Medicare, whether you're on it, whether you're considering getting on it. There's a few things that we need to talk about, okay? First thing, what is it, right? Medicare is federally facilitated health insurance for our senior population. A lot of people don't know it's also for our disabled population. I have people on the same Medicare plans, they're in their early 20s, and my oldest client right now is, I think, 105. Bless her heart, she's a trooper. But yeah, so the Medicare space is really kind of encompassing a huge swath of these people, and what I found is trying to navigate it on your own, there's a lot of pitfalls and risks associated with that, right? You really want to be working with someone just to bounce ideas off of it and have some guidance on where you should be going with your healthcare, because as we know, as we age, our healthcare becomes more complex. We start to have issues that we had fathomed or planned for, right? That's kind of all a part of the retirement planning spectrum. But in terms of just general information that I want everybody to take away from this, I know a lot of you are on Medicare already. You're working with someone that you trust. If you are not working with someone that you trust, I highly recommend you have somebody in your corner when things arise, because it doesn't matter if you've got the most foolproof plan out there, is at some point you're going to have an issue of some kind, right? So please have somebody that you trust to work with you and answer questions for you. But the first thing we want to talk about is drug coverage. Almost everyone's on some kind of prescriptions. As we age, if you're not already, you probably will be at some point, right? Please review your drug coverage every year. I get calls every year in January. People I've never met before, they say, Steve, I went to the pharmacy, they wanted $47 for my Eliquis this year, right? I go, well, did you review your drug coverage? No. Please review that. It takes very little time. If you're not confident doing it, please reach out to someone that does. I'd be happy to be that person for you, or if you have someone that you work with, please reach out. The second thing I want to talk about is Medicare fraud. It's a very real problem here in South Dakota, just like it is across the country. There's a couple different kinds of fraud that we're seeing on the Medicare side right now, okay? The first one is just general overuse. The Medicare system, whether this means anything to you or not, is the fee-for-service model, okay? What that means is doctors send the bill, they get paid for the service that they perform, right? That system by itself kind of lends itself to overuse, right? Over prescribing, over practicing. If you're at the doctor's office and you're getting ordered a bunch of tests or procedures or things that don't sound quite right to you, I'm not a doctor. I can't tell you if that's right or wrong, but if it sounds funny to you, please be a partner in your own healthcare, okay? It's okay to ask for second opinions, ask questions. If something sounds wrong, say something. The other kind of Medicare fraud that I'm seeing a lot of now is durable medical equipment fraud. Anybody know what durable medical equipment is? Basically, anything prescribed that you don't ingest, okay? That would be things like wheelchairs or orthopedics, or stuff like that. There's a gal I'm working with in Lake Norton right now. She has an entire garage full of orthopedic leg braces. She has never had leg problems, doesn't need any knee braces, but she receives one every 3 to 5 weeks. She gets a big box in her front porch. This kind of goes back to that fee-for-service model, right? There's a company out of Kentucky that has her on this list that she answered yes to a phone survey or something at some point. They're prescribing her a leg brace. They send it to her house. Medicare pays them, and they just keep repeating the process, okay? It's a messy situation, but we're seeing a lot of that kind of thing. So just please be diligent and keep an eye out for fraud. And the third and final thing I'm going to tell you that applies to everyone, regardless of whether we ever do business together or if you're ever on Medicare or not, please don't call Joe Namath on TV. Joe Namath, yeah, Joe knows, right? Joe Namath or Jimmy Walker, or any of those TV stars from the 80s. Come September, October, every commercial is going to be call and check your zip code, see if you qualify. Please don't do that. Basically what will happen is you're going to say yes to a couple of questions, and they are slicker than the average telemarketers. By answering yes, you're giving what's called a verbal signature, and now you're enrolled in something you don't understand you don't belong in, okay? And it's a lot harder for me to fix that once it's been done. So if you generally have questions or are interested in what you qualify for, please do reach out to someone that specializes in this kind of thing and let them help walk you through that process. So, I know my story is not as interesting as some of our other panelists, but the world of health insurance is kind of cut and dry, but like Bruce said, there's not one plan anymore. Medicare is really transforming into a individualized plan space. So, thank you.
Does anyone have questions for Steve?
Yes, how do you find someone like you?
Have you, yeah.
More reliable,
You,
trustworthy.
so obviously I would love to be that person for you, but there are a lot of people across the state, the reason that do what I do. I found that a lot of people don't do it real well. There are people that, you know, insure the house, they insure the farm. They also can do a little bit of Medicare stuff, right? They're not going to be real specialized. If you're looking for somebody to really help you with Medicare, you know, you can do all the Googling and things in the world that you want. As far as finding someone that you know and trust, I kind of go back to old reliable. Talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, talk to your group. Somebody in that group has an agent or a specialist that they really work with, that they really like and trust. That would be probably how I go about finding somebody to work with.
Jay, so I'm not 65, not Medicare. I continued my health insurance from when I worked, and it's horrendously expensive. It's good, but I don't think I can afford it. What are my options from now until I'm 65?
So the question kind of becomes how long until you become 65, right? But there are a few options to kind of hold you over once employer coverage terminates, okay? Kind of the real obvious one is going to be the Affordable Care Act, the healthcare marketplace. We now have the option with that ACA that passed under Obama. We have coverage options for those people. Here in the Sioux Falls area, we basically got Avera plans or Sanford plans, right? The way those plans are priced is based on taxable income, okay? That is subsidized based on what you bring in. So I'll kind of kick it to Richelle a little bit here on, there are some games you can play with your income and things on how you can still make a living, but maybe not show the income that is going to make you pay a lot for your health insurance.
Yeah, and this would be the advantage. I think one of the things that we feel really passionate about is making sure that we're collaborating with our clients' team, their financial team. Steve is a great person to collaborate with. I email Steve, he emails me right back. But you know, our income, it's taxable income, and income from like Roth IRAs, you know, that doesn't count as taxable income on your tax return. You know, when we take out of a non-qualified account, so a non-IRA account, we pay tax only on the gains, that capital gains rate. So there are ways that when your financial advisor is working with your, you know, with your healthcare professional to make sure that we keep your income at around a certain range, that you can qualify for some subsidized, you know, premiums there. I'll just comment on this, even though this is really Steve's area, but just making sure that everybody knows that there is no more pre-existing conditions. Like that was eliminated with the Affordable Care Act. That's one of those common misconceptions that I hear a lot. People come in, they say, well, I couldn't possibly go off of my employer's health insurance because I couldn't qualify for insurance. And that's the old guard way of doing things like that. It was eliminated back in 2016, I think, when the Affordable Care Act passed. So it's 8 years then now that we haven't had to worry about those pre-existing conditions, but we've just been so programmed to, you know, that was such a huge part of the equation before that people just don't realize that that's not a deal anymore. I did, we take it real quick. I did kind of write about this a little bit in the chapter of my book about the fees. So the asset-based model of fees, in my opinion, for retirement there's probably more conflict of interest in retirement with that fee model than there is in other phases of life. Because when you retire, the name of the game is withdrawals, right? And so as you withdraw money, the financial advisor on an asset under management fee is not paid as much when you take a withdrawal. And so there can be some conflict of interest. There's no perfect fee model where there's zero conflict of interest. That just doesn't exist. But we think that the flat fee is the fairest and the closest to fair and equitable and transparent that the industry has to offer. And so in retirement, I think it's really important to assess how much you're paying for your financial advice. A lot of times when people take a look at that, I actually just had a client in my office in the last couple of weeks, and she said, man, until you told me to check how much I was paying, I had no idea. And I looked at my statement, and in her case, our flat fee model is actually going to save her over $15,000 a year. I just mapped that real quick, $15,000 a year if the market averaged 6% over the next 20 years throughout retirement, $600,000 in fee savings over 20 years, $600,000. So those fees add up. At 1% feels like a small fee, but like Bryce said, over time your portfolio doubles. Your portfolio doubles again if you're 20 years in retirement, probably going to double a couple of times, borrowing withdrawals, of course. And so your fee going up just as a kind of arbitrarily tied to the market, because guess what? As much as I'd like to have control of the stock market, I do not have any control over the stock market. And so the way that we charge is just different than a lot of financial advisors, and we just really believe in that flat fee and believe that that's the fairest and most equitable way to charge our clients.
Absolutely. So did that game make sense? Did you guys like playing it? No? Okay. Well, thank you. It was a audience participation thing.
That's it, okay.
Well, having said that, right, to Richelle's point, certainly costs matter because that $600,000 is very impactful. If you could get and keep everything you liked about what you're currently doing and probably improve, and the only thing you changed is how you pay for it, would that benefit? That's a question you can ask yourself, right? I would say yes, absolutely over time, it certainly would. You can still get fair and objective and qualified advice. You just don't have to pay at a compounding interest, right? So, having said that, I would encourage everybody, they have those surveys?
Yeah, Heather's got surveys. She's going to pass out, if you wouldn't mind filling those out for us, just to help us improve events in the future. We want to do a good job for you. There's one question on the survey at the very end, something that Mona and Bruce and I have been kicking around a little bit, and Heather kind of gave a great example and input on this. We've been thinking about doing some small group retirement, kind of like support groups almost. Kind of like Heather's example is like moms. Does mothers with preschoolers, they need to like help support each other. Like what things are you struggling with? How can we support? In that moms group, they've got like mom mentors for, people who have gotten their kids through preschool. Anyway, we've been kicking around the idea of doing some kind of support groups for really helping people get the most out of retirement. And so I think the very last question on that survey is like, I'm just trying to gauge interest. We haven't put them together. We're just thinking about it. We would meet maybe once a month, not or anything like that, but just as an overall support for how you can retire. If you're interested in it, great. If you're not, that's totally fine. We're just trying to gauge interest at this point of whether people would be interested in doing that.
One of the things we're aware of is that when it's a couple relationship, one person maybe just slips into retirement very easily, whereas the partner may be struggling. And So anyway, sometimes that can present a problem in the relationship. And being retired together is a whole new piece of the marital journey, isn't it? You committed to family and to work, and now it lifts up the relationship in a different way.
It's a really good point. And sometimes people retire differently. Like a lot of times I have clients who say like, well, one spouse has separate ambitions. This other spouse wants to travel the world, and one spouse wants to watch Sally Jesse Raphael. I don't know if that's actually in the show anymore, but you already know what that is. And so rich people retire differently, and that can be very difficult. I actually do have, and also in my book, there's a little chapter on something that my husband and I did to help us navigate the transition of retirement, talking about what our expectations and fears and that kind of thing, and improving communication in marriage. I joke with all of my clients who are entering retirement that I know a good marriage counselor, and then we all laugh and laugh, but everyone knows it's not a joke, right? Because you get to do a lot of togetherness. So, and there's so many aspects of retirement that are can be challenging. So.
Well, absolutely. So thank you all for coming. We appreciate the opportunity to share this evening with you. We appreciate the opportunity to help us make this time of your life the best it can be. And we hope you've enjoyed it. Love the surveys. Please fill them out. We love your feedback. And if you like what you've heard here tonight, and if you'd like to continue the conversation, you can always reach out to myself, Richelle, Steve, Heather in the back. So we'd love to help. We'd love to answer any questions you have, and we'd love to keep the conversation rolling.
Yeah, and one other quick thing, just kind of FYI to everyone, name tags. So we do this kind of intentionally. Our black name tags that say Founders Club on them, those are clients of Impact who have been with us basically from the beginning. So it's easy for you if you're a guest here this evening, that you can identify those clients who've been around Impact for as long as Impact has been in business, and you can just visit with them about like what has their experience been. And then we've also got another kind of name tag here that's white vertical. And those are clients of our firm that have just joined within the last, recently, basically. So they're clients of the firm, and you can identify them and talk with them. But the black name tags are the ones who've been with us from the get-go, from the very beginning. So that's for those of you who are guests. If you want to get the real nitty-gritty on what happens at Impact Wealth Management, those black name tags are the people you should be talking to. So awesome! Thank you again so much, guys, for coming. It's always fun to hang out. So thank you.
Thank you.